Mr. President, there's been a lot said about this amendment, most of it inaccurate. So let me step back and start at what the amendment says. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward when you actually read it. The amendment simply requires the census that we are set to take next year to ask whether the respondent is a citizen or not. The amendment doesn't do anything but that. It simply says the census should ask folks if they're citizens. So it's very straightforward. We should count every person in the United States. The census should include everyone, but in so doing, I'm encouraging, and my amendment would require that the census ask if an individual is a citizen or not. Compared to that simple statement of policy, that simple goal, it's absolutely mind-boggling to me, some of the statements that have been made about it. First of all, the distinguished Majority Leader, Senator Reid, admitted in several conference calls and statements to the press that he's trying to invoke cloture on this bill specifically to block out any vote, any discussion of the Vitter Amendment. Secondly, in saying that, the Majority Leader called my amendment anti-immigrant. Now, I honestly don't see how any reasonable person can say we take a census, we simply ask whether the respondent is a citizen or a non-citizen. Plenty of non-citizens who are here legally is anti-immigrant. Third, and perhaps most outrageously, Senator Reid said that my effort is akin to the activities in the 1950s and 1960s to intimidate black citizens and try to get them to stay away from voting in the voting booth. I take personal offense to that. I think there's no reasonable comparison, and I ask Senator Reid to apologize to me for that outrageous statement on the Senate floor. You know, the top thing the census is used for, the first thing the census is used for, is to reapportion the U.S. House of Representatives, to determine, after each census is done, how many U.S. House members each state gets. Now, the current plan is to count everybody and not ask whether a person is a citizen or a non-citizen. So the current plan is to reapportion House seats using that overall number, using both citizens and non-citizens in the mix. I think that's wrong. I think that's contrary to the whole intent of the Constitution and the establishment of Congress as a democratic institution to represent citizens. I believe only citizens should be in that particular calculation for the reapportionment of the U.S. House of Representatives. This is a significant issue for many states, including my state of Louisiana, and it has a very big and direct and concrete impact on Louisiana and certain other states. And it comes down to this. If the census is done next year and reapportionment happens using everybody, citizens and non-citizens, Louisiana is going to lose a House seat in the U.S. House of Representatives, lose 1/7 of our standing there, our representation there, our clout. If the census was done and only citizens, that number of citizens was used to determine reapportionment, Louisiana would not lose that House seat. We would retain 7 seats. So that's a very big and direct impact on my state of Louisiana. I'd also point out that it's the same impact in 7 other states: North Carolina, South Carolina, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Mississippi, Michigan, Iowa, and Indiana. 8 other states. So a total of 9 states are in this position, Louisiana being one of them. Now, there's been discussion in at least 2 areas that I want to quickly address. One is some discussion in the press, including from my distinguished colleague from Louisiana, Senator Landrieu, that what I just laid out in terms of the impact on reapportionment isn't true. Well, I think every expert who's looked at this, every demographer who's looked at this, agrees with what I just said, that this factor is the difference between Louisiana losing a House seat or not, these other states losing a House seat or not. I would point out three experts, and there are many others. Dr. Elliot Stonecipher, demographer from Louisiana, has been leading the charge on this issue, and I compliment him for his tenacity and his hard work. But others as well. In an October 27, 2009 New York Times article, my numbers were again confirmed by Andrew Beveridge, professor of sociology at Queens College, New York. He did an independent analysis and said exactly the same thing. Yes, this issue of whether we use citizens or citizens and non-citizens in reapportionment does make that huge difference for those states. And again, last week, my analysis and my numbers were confirmed yet again by an independent and well-respected demographic expert, again in my state of Louisiana, Greg Rigamer with GCR and Associates. And that's very significant. Secondly, I want to briefly address this cost issue. Well, it's certainly true that it would cost some more. I can't give you a precise dollar figure. It would cost something more. It's certainly true that it would have been better for this to have been caught and debated earlier rather than later. And unfortunately, the Committee of Jurisdiction, Homeland Security, which reviews the census forms, did not bring this issue up in a significant way. I agree with that. I don't agree with this wild figure that it would cost $1 billion. 3 weeks of asking for the data behind that $1 billion claim, they sent us one piece of paper with 10 bullet points on it, all very general statements and suggestions, and with the final bottom line, a nice, even, round figure of $1 billion. That's very unimpressive, in my opinion, in terms of any precise accounting. Mr. President, my bottom line is simple. We do a census every 10 years. It's a really important event. We need to do it right. This is an important question, and we simply shouldn't forge ahead when Americans have a fundamental problem with not even asking the citizenship question, and with therefore forging ahead with the plan to reapportion the entire U.S. House of Representatives, putting non-citizens in the mix when the whole notion of a representative democracy and of Congress is to represent citizens of the country.